Please join me in welcoming Pastor Lucky Ka'ahumanu of Church on the Go. He's going to give us a pulley, and then we can eat. Thank you, Pastor Lucky.
Makauko, kami kapu. May the Lord God bless you and keep you. May God's face shine upon you and be gracious unto you. And may God lift up his countenance upon all you and give you peace, both now and forevermore. Bless the food, O Lord God, and let it nourish our bodies to have the strength from above to have your will be done here below. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen.
Let the show begin.
All right. Pastor Lucky has just been an awesome guy helping this. We're talking today about housing and homelessness, and he's helping battered women and children for the last 30-some years in Maui. This amazing man. Give him a big round of applause for what he's been doing to help everybody in so many ways. Aloha, everybody. So as everybody's had some food, what do you think about that awesome food presentation from CJ's Deli? I mean, we've been putting on events for a long time, for about 37 years, and each year seems to get better, but no event has ever surpassed the food quality we just had here tonight, and we're just awesome. Thank you so much, CJ's, for that incredible feast. Prior to this thing starting, there was a lot of people having questions about what we're doing at our meeting, and I think there's a lot of misunderstanding about what our meeting is all about. I started the West Maui Taxpayers in 1979 when I came to Maui to move here full time after visiting from Honolulu for 10 years, back and forth. I moved to Maui, and I was asked to join the Honokawaii Pili Kapalua Taxpayers Union, and they put me in charge of membership. And I said, I have a hard time pronouncing Honokawaii Pili Kapalua Taxpayers Union, let alone be in charge of membership. So I said, if you want me to do that, I'm happy to do that, but I would like to change the name. And we tossed it around and around, and we finally ended up with West Maui Taxpayers, because that would include all of West Maui. While the name Taxpayers was still maybe not the best name we could have chosen, because some people think that we have something to do only with taxes. Well, that's true, but not true. We pay a lot of taxes here in the West Side. In fact, over 50% of the entire county of Maui take and property tax revenue comes from West Maui. It's been somewhere between 45 and 50% forever, and actually that number is getting larger and larger. So that's what an important contribution that West Side gives, but it was not getting back those kind of returns from the state and county government for infrastructural needs and assistance. We needed fire and ambulance protection, and West Maui. We had one fire and ambulance station, and everybody agreed with us. They said, yes, you're right, but so does everybody. You have to just wait your turn. Someday, when we get enough money and it gets down the line, then you'll be able to get that. And we said, well, that's not good enough. We got the land donated from the Kapalua and at Napili from Colin Cameron, who was a dear friend of mine, is no longer with us, but he was a dear friend, and he recognized the need for health and safety, so he donated us the land. And we went out to the community and we raised millions of dollars because we got then Mayor Lingle to agree that if we would raise all the money to build that fire and ambulance station, including buying the fire engine and the furniture for the station, that she would put it in the county budget. And we did that. That was very successful. That's been saving lives and homes and health and safety. That's never been done in any community anywhere in the state of Hawaii ever. But we're the only ones that did it. Then they said, oh, now you're done with that, let's get a hospital for West Maui. Okay, so we worked on that for the last 17 years, and now we've got a certificate of need in May of 1979 to build a West Maui hospital. As you know, when the financial collapse happened and everything fell apart, that we thought we lost it all, but it all came back, and now the developer's got all his land use entitlements and privileges and everything, and he's going forward, and that hospital will be under construction sometime near the end of 2016 and open for business in 2017, saving lives. So that's never been done elsewhere as well, doing that. That's another plus. And we built a skate park here in Lahaina Skate Park for the kids. It got them off everybody's streets and driveways where they were killing themselves and causing problems. That's never been done by a community organization. Public-private partnerships, we did that. We got the aquatic center here, right, in the Nahale Keola Homeless Resource Center. All these things, the highway widenings, improvements, unbelievable. There's a little list of goals and accomplishments at your table, what the West Maui taxpayers has done for the community here. We have never got one penny of annual support to our budget from the county or state. We've done this all with private contributions. We're not in anybody's budget. Wish we were in some sense, but in the other sense, I'm glad we're not, because we're not beholden to any government agency. We represent the community and individuals like all of you privately who choose to join us and help us when we have projects that you believe are consistent with what we want to do to help the community. It's been such a privilege and a pleasure to know that with everyone's help in this room and other people who are, many of which are no longer with us, we've been doing this for 37 years. A lot of my dearest friends and some of my board members are gone on to, the real big island up there. And Uwe Schultz was an architect, a dear friend of mine, who donated his architectural services and times to us without charge, like all of our board members. We work for free. But we do it because we love Maui. And I know that there's not one person in this room that doesn't love Maui. I can tell you that. Not one of you in this room that doesn't love Maui. We all love Maui, and we care about it passionately, and we put up with some things that maybe they aren't necessarily the most convenient, but we do it because we love Hawaii. I just can't tell you how I feel that the world tragedy in Paris brings to mind of how much the aloha spirit is needed everywhere in the world. What the people of Hawaii have here in their spirit of aloha, which is beyond my able to adequately express or describe to anybody, because to me it's love, unbelievable, unconditional love and acceptance and beauty, and a thing that I'm still learning about. But I love the Hawaiian people. I get teared up when I think about them. And you see the expressions of love and joy and how they help each other. That's what the world needs. The world needs that kind of aloha and love, and not killing and not hate, but love and aloha. Somehow I hope that Hawaii can export that somehow to the world. The world needs aloha. Anyway, I teared up here at the West Maui taxpayers really is doing this again because we saw in the community. Now we took care of these other projects. They're all done. What's the next big thing? Well, we had the Lahaina bypass. That was 36 years ago, but now that's going, and that's underway. So what's left? Well, there's this. One of the things that's been on our list for the longest time has been housing. There's never been enough housing here in West Maui. It's just one of those things that for as long as I can remember, there's never been enough housing. Affordable housing in the county and the state have always tried somehow together to do something about the housing situations. Our attempt to help what was at the time, I think it was over 20 years ago, for a portion of the population that needed emergency sheltering and transitional housing and low-income rentals and so forth. It was a real big push in all that, and that helped us, our lobbying, and a lot of like-minded people. We resulted in getting the Kahale Akeola Homeless Resource Center built here, right up on Shaw Street at the very top there, and that was very successful. Do you know they've had over 150 people on a wait list there for the last 5 years? Can you imagine being on a wait list for that for year after year and for 5 years? I mean, I can't even imagine that, but that's a fact. So what do? What happens? There's some real serious issues here about housing, and people want to put us all in or put the whole issue in some kind of little box. There's not a one-size-fits-all situation. This is not a one-size-fits-all situation. This is so diverse. People talk about homelessness, and they instantly think of some bum on the street with a paper bag and a bottle. Are you kidding? That's just one teeny small, that's probably the smallest aspect of problem of homelessness there is in that whole discussion. There's so many levels of that, transitional areas and people who've been out of work. I know that tremendous economic struggle that caused so much calamity when banks went under. We didn't have the United States government bail out individual homes like they did General Motors and everybody else. I mean, we had to fend for ourselves, and some people who couldn't make it, really had some serious problems, life-changing problems. And it's still much better today than it was then, but we've got a long way to go. So, believe it or not, now that we seem to have got these other issues off our plate that are on our goals and objectives sheet there, we're saying, all right, now we're going to just really tackle this affordable housing, homelessness, transitional housing, types of housing issues. And how are we going to tackle it? Well, we believe in public-private partnerships. We've seen that when we partner together with the government, the county, or the state, or different nonprofits together, collective minds together collaboratively, really can produce great results. And it seems that has just now been seen in the state, taking on this public-private partnership for Maui Memorial Hospital. I'm so thrilled. I don't know about you, but how wonderful now this is going to finally make our one hospital that we have here so much better. We can't lose no matter who was selected, whether it would be the one medical operator or Kaiser. Either way, we won. That has always been my testimony. But it seems Kaiser's in the program now. I know that we're all going to have a much better, safer, more productive hospital, employees at the hospital, and a safer place to live for all of us as a result of that. I'm really looking forward to that. This affordable housing thing, again, is such a big issue. So how can we start? This is just the first meeting of that. This has nothing to do with the state or the county. Well, there's people from the state and the county here. We asked them to come because we hear that one person has got this idea, some person's got that idea, some people have this impression and that impression. Everybody's got all these different impressions and facts and figures, and it's been told prior to the meeting here that everybody's preconception has been based upon some rumor for the most part, and then they believe the rumor becomes truth, and who knows where you're going from that. So we thought we got to start the dialogue. We got to bring some of these people and issues together and get some factual information out there, and perhaps maybe people will see some of these dots that are all isolated starting to be connecting. We'll start connecting some of these dots, and some of it will start making sense to some people. We won't solve any of the issues or problems here tonight. We won't. This is just the start, the beginning of a conversation, of a discussion that we're going to continue. We joined the Maui Homeless Alliance, the West Maui taxpayers did, because we went to one of their meetings and we saw what a phenomenal group of people that are associated here in so many agencies have been dealing with or trying to grapple with these issues for years. And yet their dots are still not connected. And we're hoping that this year and the coming year, some of these dots are going to start getting connected. It's Rick Nava is our president. Rick and I, Rick, would you stand up, please? Rick Nava is our president of the West Maui taxpayers. Also here is Greg Nelson. Greg is one of our West Maui taxpayers. Please, Greg, stand up. Thank you, Greg. And they've been on the board for many years now, helping us do these things. Rick and I went to the Homeless Alliance meeting, and we were so impressed, as I said, and we said, we've got to join this. Our board met last month, and we agreed to become a paying member, dues paying member. and work towards these issues together. Communications is the key. Communications between county, state, government, individuals, and getting all this communications down factually. People need to know what the truth is, what their questions are, and let those questions be answered. We're just trying to get the start of that going. No project or approvals of anything, of any project or anything is going to be done or resolved here today. All we're going to do today is hopefully start some more discussions and get you interested in being part of the solution. Join us in the West Maui taxpayers. Become a dues-paying member, $50 a year. We've saved everybody more in their fire insurance premium in West Maui than you can imagine. Your fire insurance here in West Maui is more than 50% less than it would be without our fire and ambulance station and some of the things we've done to improve this site already. So we've been giving a dividend back to people for many, many years for what our work has been done by a volunteer board. So join us, help us, support these projects, support more communications, things we're doing here now. So this program, again, is not going to be a support of any project, any development. We've got different representatives from what we thought was a good cross-section of representation from the county and state about these issues and to begin the dialogue. And I don't know about the rest of you, but I've been to many meetings and where people testify and they talk about things, and everybody says, when is so-and-so going to get off, stop telling us about where they were born, what their mama did, what their daddy did, and how long they've been in Hawaii and how many people they know, and they finally get to the question that they want to ask. So to stop that from happening and to get the best, most efficient use of time, we've asked our moderator, Deidre Teagarden. Deidre, please stand up, Deidre. Deidre came to mind because we've seen her in tough jobs in the past. She was the governor's representative liaison officer. She was appointed position of chief of protocol for Neil Abercrombie, the governor of the state. Most recently in a second consecutive appointment in the same capacity for Governor Ige as chief protocol officer. Deidre had the pleasure of working on behalf of the state with Nobel Peace Prize recipient Aung San Suu Kyi, President Ma Ying-jeou, President Xi Jinping. Xi Jinping. She can speak Chinese and Japanese. I can't. And His Majesty King Tuhetia. Prior to her service in the state capital, Deidre was the coordinator for the Maui County Office of Economic Development and previously held the position of executive director of Big Brothers Big Sisters in Maui. So with a background in public, private, and social enterprise sectors, she realizes how, in order to move a community forward, everybody needs to work together. And that's what it's all about. We need all to work together. We got to find out what we agree upon, not what we disagree upon. Work on those areas of agreement and cultivate those areas of agreement. Deidre is the past president also of the Rotary Club of Kahului, a 40 under 40 recipient of the Weinberg Fellow. She speaks both Japanese and Chinese, which has helped her greatly in her work in Maui County and the state of Hawaii. So to help us in that process, Deidre is going to come up here and let's give her a big hand. What we've asked Deidre to do, and I'll ask all of your cooperation in doing it, we'll ask our panel members to please come up and have a seat here at the table at this time also. And then we're going to have them give us a little description about themselves. And Deidre will tell you more about that. But again, I hope that you'll enjoy this presentation tonight. It's being filmed on Akaku, and we really appreciate your cooperation and hope you have a great time, and thank you for coming.
Thank you. Thank you, Joe. Another big round of applause for Joe Pluta and all of the directors at West Maui Taxpayers Association. This past Saturday through this coming Saturday is National Hunger and Homelessness Awareness Week. So this panel discussion comes at a really important and good time. So just again, thank you to Joe and the West Maui Taxpayers Association for hosting this first of its kind on the West Side panel discussion about homelessness, which is such a broad issue. I think we can all agree that homelessness is everywhere we look, and it transcends party. It is not a Democratic issue. It's not Republican. It isn't a gender issue. Homelessness does not discriminate. It affects our elderly, our children, our families, people from all ethnicities. And it's not just the people that we see most on the streets. It's also those people who are one paycheck away from homelessness. People who are working, who are just trying their best to keep it all together. So we're really experiencing a crisis. It did not develop overnight. It isn't an act of nature. It has been a systemic process which has left our community in a really multi-layered deficit. And we cannot tackle every layer here tonight, but we can, as a community and as our Maui community, which is so Noko'oi, step into this issue and be part of a very positive change. So we have a great panel here today. Just a few things. As Joe had said, we do have questions that have already been sent in from the West Maui Taxpayers Association, and we do have many, many questions from the audience here tonight. So what I'm going to do is, go back and forth between the questions that we have. I don't know that we'll be able to answer all of the questions here this evening, but the panelists, for those who are not having to fly back to Oahu tonight, will be here to talk story afterwards. All of this information is going to be available on the West Maui Taxpayers Association website. It's being filmed by Akaku. Thank you, Akaku. And if you haven't written your questions down yet, or you have other questions to ask, do we still have cards in the back? We do. Okay, so the cards are back there, and you can drop them off to Joe, or you can bring them up to me as well. Before we get started with all of the introductions, I would also like to acknowledge that Governor Ige's representative is here this evening, Ms. Leah Belmonte. So let's have a big round of applause. Leah is very accessible. She works up in Wailuku, and I see you at every single community event. Thank you for coming out. So, with no further ado, I'm going to have the panelists introduce themselves. I see that we don't have a microphone for you yet, so instead of pulling this across the table, I thought, while we do get another microphone, have you come up. But our first panelist is Dr. Keali'i Akina. He is the president and CEO of Grassroots Institute of Hawaii. It's the state's leading free market think tank. He is a professor teaching philosophy at Hawaii Pacific University. He is a trained Hawaiian chanter and teacher of Hawaiian philosophy course at HPU. And he is the father of 4 children, all Kamehameha Schools alumni. So please give a warm welcome to Dr. Akina.
Aloha mai kako, aloha everyone. They say Maui no Ko'oi, so glad to be with you. Deidre, appreciate that, and I'll honor the 3-minute time limit I've been given. But I'm Keali'i Akina, president of the Grassroots Institute. I also have the wonderful opportunity every Monday morning at 7 a.m. to be on KAOI talking about free markets. I'm so glad you're all here tonight because we care about the homeless. We also care about providing enough housing here in the state of Hawaii and on Maui. There are really 2 approaches, and I want to take my hat off to the first one. The first approach to solving the problem of homelessness is being done by our state and being done by our city and being done by so many charities and organizations. I call that troops on the ground. These are the people who provide food and clothing and shelter. And, I think the people who do that are heroes. That's one approach. What we like to do at the Grassroots Institute is point out Hawaii needs an even bigger approach. We need an approach in addition to the ground troops approach. We need an approach called free market thinking. We need to revamp the entire economy according to a principle called free markets. Now, don't let me confuse you. Let me just give you one example. We have come up with 10 different things our government could do. And if we did these 10 things, we could eliminate the problem of homelessness. And I'll be very glad to give you our report on that and a free video if you just leave your card at our table. But I want you to imagine one of the problems we have. One of the growing sectors of homelessness is people who come from Micronesia. And most of them are able-bodied, and they're coming to Hawaii because they want to work. They've learned that there's a great opportunity here. But when they get here, they go on to welfare because they have nothing else to sustain them. And then they end up in homeless camps 1/3 of the Kaka'ako campsite out in the island of Oahu is made up of Micronesians. Now, if you have a company and you're saying, I can't afford a lot, but I can afford to hire some of these people at maybe $7 an hour or $6 or $5 an hour, and you go down there and you see that there are these able-bodied Micronesians, they want to work, they're proud, and they're able to work. You try to hire them at that price, it's illegal. It's illegal because the government says you can't work with that other person. You can't supply a job to that person who has a demand, who wants to work. That's interfering with the free market. Our research shows if we simply change that law, we could employ thousands of homeless people right away who are willing to work for slightly under the minimum wage, which businesses could afford. But we can't do that. Now, if there were 9 other things like that we did, we'd end the problem. Free market principles don't mean we cut out the safety net. Free market principles don't mean we have a dog-eat-dog world with Gordon Gekko. What it means is that the government doesn't do things that interferes with the free market. So this evening, you're going to hear a couple of things. And I want you to pay close attention. First, you're going to hear from my colleagues some wonderful efforts that we have to work on more and more to provide food, clothing, shelter for homeless. But I also want you to give me an opportunity to talk about changing our economy completely with a bigger idea. The bigger idea that we're not providing welfare and that it's not the role of the government to interfere, but rather we let the market forces work. By the way, here's what the research shows. We go all the way across the world. Wherever free market principles are at work, guess what? The rich get richer and the poor get richer too. And that improves society. I want to thank you so much for being here tonight. Aloha, much aloha to you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. We look forward to hearing more from you. We have some questions for you as well, so looking forward to that. I'd now like to bring Jan Shishido up. Jan is the Deputy Director for the County of Maui's Office of Housing and Human Concerns. Known Jan for a long time, a very, very hard worker and very dedicated. So Jan, I will turn this over to you. Yes, round of applause for Jan.
When I was little, I wished I was tall like Deidre. It's okay. Good evening, everybody, and thank you. I wanted to thank Mr. Nava and Mr. Pluta for inviting us here tonight, and especially thank you, Lahaina community. Because of you and your concerns, we are here, and we're here to listen as well as to dialogue with you. Again, my name is Jan Shishido. And I'm a former educator with the DOE for 26 years until the mayor gave me this really hard job, and which I do work really hard. I see many of you out there, and I know that all of you work really hard too. And it's so apropos that I work for housing, but for human concerns, because I tell people I'm human and I am concerned. So it's a real privilege to be here tonight to look at all of you and know that there are many questions, and hopefully we can answer them. And like Deidre, who was introduced as a Rotarian, I just have to put a plug. I'm a Kiwanian and proud of it. So ask away, and thank you again for inviting us tonight.
Yeah, we have so many wonderful organizations on Maui, whether it's Kiwanis, Rotary, Lions, MEO, Halimaha'olu, West Maui Taxpayers Association. I think we're very, very lucky to be here. All right, Catholic Charities. Thelma Akita Kealoha is here with us tonight. She is a wealth of information, and we're excited to have her here this evening as well. Give her a big round of applause.
Good evening. I'm Thelma Akita Kealoha, and of course Deidre, who speaks fluent Japanese, is pronouncing my name correct, and I am not. How embarrassing is that? But this is my married name. My maiden name was actually Matsumoto. So anyway, thank you for allowing us to be here tonight and for being willing to ask questions, to actually be willing to help work on the solution for homelessness. Because actually, I think that's what we're here today for. So I commend you, because one of the questions, when they were asking me, what questions do you want? One of the questions I had written down was, whose problem is homelessness? And who gets to solve the problem? And many times, I hear it from our Continuum of Care, Maui Homeless Alliance. It's not just the agencies. It's everybody's problem. So we all got to work together. There's not enough funding for an agency to take on homelessness by itself. So I commend you for being here. I thank you for inviting me. I do work for Catholic Charities Hawaii, and I sit on the Maui Homeless Alliance with these wonderful people, and these two ladies especially, and Maud and I co-chair the Homeless Alliance. So thank you.
Let's see, maybe we can just take this out. I wonder if this is long enough. I think this is going to be long enough to spring over to you, Maud, unless would you like to come up as well? You're fine sitting? Okay. So next we have Maud Cummings with the Family Life Center, and as Thelma said, also the co-chair of the Alliance. And so I'm going to just give this over to you now and let you say a few words. Give us a little introduction.
Yes, and I saw that somehow she slipped by without getting laid. So you got to get that in there somehow. Come on. Thank you, Laura. Thank you.
So I'm excited to be here tonight. Family Life Center is a small organization, but we try to do everything. And there are days when we say we can't do everything. But one of our main goals is to end homelessness. And so when we hire someone on, this is what I tell them: your job is to work yourself out of a job. And they're like, huh? I said, we're not here to, if we could shut down Family Life Center tomorrow, I would be so excited, because then I could retire, because the only reason we would shut down is because we've ended the problem that we set out to address. And that really is our goal. We don't want to be in existence forever, just continuing to work at an issue and not really thinking that we can solve it. We really believe that we will be able to solve the problem. So I'm excited to be here, because I'm excited to see so many other people in the community that want to do that as well. And so tonight, hopefully, we can address some of the misconceptions about homelessness, but also some of the creative ideas that we're trying to do, and ways in which we're trying to go outside of the box and say, this is what we've been doing for years, but it's not working. So let's do something different. And so I hope that we can do that tonight.
And I'll just stay right here. So thinking of talking about creative ideas, we have Kaloa Robinson with Stanford Car Development, who flew over from Oahu as well this evening. So please give us your introduction.
Thank you. Thank you to the West Maui Taxpayers Association for having me here. For those in the back, I'm not Stanford Carr. Unfortunately, he couldn't make it tonight. He's flying on business. But my name is Kaloa Robinson. I'm a project manager for Stanford Carr. I'm also the project manager who's working on the 21 acres over on Front Street, which has 102 affordable housing units built on it, which the WMTA has supported from its inception. Thank you very much. Otherwise known as Kahoma Village. So thank you again for your support, and we continue to look forward to many more of these discussions as they come up.
Okay, thank you very much. You know what? It looks like we have enough now. So Scott Morishige is the Governor Ige's homelessness coordinator. You were appointed about a month and a half, 2 months ago? Or two and a half months ago. So he flew over this evening to talk a little bit about the state's plan and the governor's plan. We have plenty of questions for you, but why don't you give us an introduction first?
Okay. Good evening, everyone, and thank you again for inviting me to be a part of this discussion tonight. As Deidre mentioned, my name is Scott Morishige, and I'm the Governor's Coordinator on Homelessness, and I have been on the job only 2.5 months, but it feels like much, much longer. I've definitely, I think, hit the ground running, and we've been working very hard at the state to try and address the issue of homelessness, not just on Oahu, but statewide. Because we understand this is an issue that touches every part of our state, every island, every county. And, today I was very fortunate to, during my travels here in Maui, I was here from 7:30 this morning, and most of my day I actually spent with some of the folks on this panel from the Continuum of Care who really took me on a tour of the island and really where some of the homeless encampments are in Maui. And it was an opportunity for me to see firsthand how this issue impacts you and your community. And I think it's really great that so many of you came out tonight to be part of this discussion. Because as the state is looking at addressing this critical issue, one of the things that we realize is that community dialogue, community conversations like this, is really part of how we get to a real solution. And the solution may look different community to community, but really what we need is we need to have feedback from the community members like yourselves to really give us a sense of, well, what are you seeing? What are you experiencing sort of on the ground? What are you hearing from some of your friends, neighbors? Maybe you have family members who've fallen into homelessness. So that feedback is really critical, and I'm really encouraged by the fact that there's so many of you who have been able to come out tonight. And thank you again for inviting me to be a part of this discussion.
Thank you. So Scott, we're going to start with you. I know you were going to give an overview of the governor's homelessness plan, but we also got a question from the audience specifically about the proclamation, and the question is the emergency proclamation dedicated to one location on Oahu, or is it statewide?
That's a very good question. And so, as I mentioned, the issue of homelessness is one that touches every part of our state. So the emergency proclamation does have a statewide impact. There's 3 primary purposes to the proclamation. The first was to help with the rapid build-out of a transitional shelter for families on the island of Oahu. But the second and third purposes are purposes that touch every part of our state. The second purpose of the proclamation is to extend all of our existing contracts for homeless services for outreach, emergency shelter, transitional shelter, and rental assistance for at least 6 more months. That allows the state the time to be able to better evaluate these existing contracts, be able to put them out for competitive bid in early July of next year. The third purpose is the state has identified $1.5 million initially within the state budget within this current fiscal year, which we wanted to put out immediately into the community. So about half of that $1.5 million goes to the neighbor island counties, to Hawaii County, Maui County, and Kauai County, to programs that help quickly transition homeless individuals and families off the streets and sidewalks and beaches and into permanent housing. Part of that $1.5 million is to establish a Housing First program on the neighbor islands. Right now, we do have a Housing First program on Oahu, but we wanted to make sure that we expanded this program statewide because it's an evidence-based best practice that we know is proven to work in other communities. Shortly following the governor's initial declaration of the emergency proclamation, we did issue a supplemental proclamation. And what that allows the state to do is for us to better coordinate resources, again, statewide, to see how can we assist homeless individuals and families that we know are without a permanent place to live, and some of them appearing on public lands, on state or county property, and really to allow the state to have the tools that we need to relocate these individuals in a compassionate way. So the emergency proclamation, again, it does have statewide impact, and we are open to having dialogue with the different counties. If there are specific needs that are identified, there's always the possibility of doing a supplemental to the proclamation. But we want to make sure that we understand, again, the specific needs of each community, really understand the homeless population in every area of our state, make decisions based on data, and again, based on community dialogue. I don't know if you want me to go into the broader plan to address homelessness, or
Yeah, why don't you, since you have the microphone, why don't you go ahead and do that,
okay.
please?
So again, as Governor Ige and the administration looks at this issue of homelessness, we really believe that there's three critical elements that are part of the framework that we're taking to address this issue. The first I've already mentioned is data. Better understanding the needs of homeless individuals in the community. We've helped over the past few months to implement a common assessment tool across our state, which service providers are beginning to use to allow us to get better data on the needs of homeless populations in every area of our state. But we're also, when I talk about data, we're also looking at getting better data about how our resources are utilized. So for example, one of the things we're starting to look at really critically is looking at use of shelter space in our community. If we have vacancies in our shelter system, we want to understand why those vacancies occur, and see, well, if there are vacancies, how can we better utilize that space? Before we invest in creating any new shelters, we want to make sure that we're maximizing everything we have currently existing. The second part of our framework is coordination, trying to coordinate and align our efforts with that of efforts at the federal level, county level, and with that of other state agencies. I think to get to this point of coordination and alignment, one of the things that's been very critical is Governor Ige's formation of the leadership team on homelessness. And this is something that I think is unprecedented, that we never really saw before, is we had our governor, all 4 members of our congressional delegation, the 2 money chairs from our state house and state senate, as well as the mayor of the city and county of Honolulu, but we've also included the mayors of the other counties in some of the dialogue as well, to have all of these leaders in the same room together to make sure that our efforts at both the federal level, state level, and county level are all aligned. Although a lot of our initial conversation focused on the city and county of Honolulu and the issue of Kaka'ako, which was immediately before us, we have been engaging in dialogue with other counties as well. Earlier today, I had a meeting with Mayor Arakawa as well as the Lieutenant Governor Tsutsui to talk about, well, how can we better collaborate and better align state and county efforts so we can maximize our resources and our strategy to address homelessness here on Maui. The third part of the governor's framework is, as I mentioned earlier, community dialogue. Really engaging in discussions like this one, making sure that I go out into the community, not only talking to community members like yourselves, but also going out into the community, talking to those who are homeless so we can understand things from their perspective, and talking to service providers and get their input as well. Through all of these efforts, using this 3-point framework that relies on data, coordination, and community dialogue, we've been able to make significant progress. As an example, and I know this is an Oahu example, but I wanted to share with you some of what we achieved in Kaka'ako. In Kaka'ako, we had a very large homeless encampment, which from the news coverage, the numbers were about 300. But originally, when you asked people how large that encampment was in Kaka'ako, no one could tell you the exact number. Nobody knew exactly how many people it was. But the governor and the leadership team working together with service providers, what we did is we went out into that community. We got a better sense of the data. We did a survey to see how many people were living in that encampment. We got the number, which was 293. The survey also told us not just the number of people there, but what their needs were, that there are a significant amount of families living in that encampment, a lot of people who are well below the poverty level. The average income for a household of 4 was only $500 a month. That information was very valuable to allow us to target our resources and target our efforts. And through that, we were able to move over 54% of those living in that encampment into shelter and permanent housing. And of the families in the area, we were able to move 25 of the 31 families, or over 80% of the families, into housing. And I think that's a significant accomplishment. And that's something that we're starting to replicate now in every part of our state. We're working closely with the continuum of care here, our service providers as well as county, to see are there ways that we can apply some of those lessons learned to the work here in Maui. So again, that's just a brief overview of the governor's plan to address homelessness, some of the work that we're doing with the emergency proclamation and supplemental, and I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have later on.
Great. Thank you very much. That was a really nice overview. Okay, so next we're going to go to Kaloa Robinson, and I have two questions here. You know, we hear about affordable housing, we hear about workforce housing. So one of the questions is, you know, what do those terms specifically mean? Are they interchangeable? You know, so number one, what do the terms affordable and workforce housing mean? And then the second part of that is, why is affordable housing so high in demand, but so short in supply? And you have 2 minutes. No, it's a joke. No, you have more than that. That's a big question.
So the term affordable is by and large abused. Developers throw it around, realtors throw it around, politicians throw it around. Everyone throws it around. No one really knows what it means. There is a definition. HUD, along with state and county agencies, they survey the population, determine what the area median incomes are for various groups of the island. So there's an area median income for Kaka'ako, there's one for West Maui, Lanai, Hana has their own. And they look at that data and determine what is affordable based on the area median income. Just to give you kind of a rough idea, the area median income for Lahaina is about $75,000. That's earning 100% of the AMI. And if you earn the AMI 100%, and you have a family of four, what's affordable for you is about $350,000 at an interest rate of 4.25%. These are all determined by government agencies, so that's sort of the guideline that we use when we talk about affordable housing projects. An affordable housing project typically consists of some kind of mix between 80% and 140% of the area median income, sometimes a little bit less, sometimes a little bit more, depends on which law you're using. Now, the reason why affordable housing is so high in demand, but so short in supply, the market is very deep. A lot of people need affordable housing. There's three main economic principles that sort of underlay why it's so hard to build affordable housing. There's the natural supply of developable land. Number two is the regulatory environment of development. And number three is the home voter hypothesis, which essentially means that you have yours, you don't want anyone else to build because it may impact your home in a way that you don't like. So those are the three main things that have to do with how easy it is to develop affordable housing. Now, that doesn't mean that it's impossible. There are some really, really good vehicles for developing affordable housing. For example, our Kahoma Village project is a mixture of affordable and market, which provides affordable housing between 80% and 140 to 160% AMI, while at the same time not providing a product that you would typically find in an affordable housing project because the market units offset the affordable units. That was done through HRS 201H, where we went out, did our study, our flora-fauna study and various surveys, put together a complete application, went before the council, and forced them to approve our project or disapprove our project within a 45-day period. That's the 201H, quote-unquote, fast track. It's really not that fast track. It takes about 2 years to get to the month-and-a-half decision date. But that's an excellent vehicle for developers to use to build affordable housing. One of the other, with the 201H, is an exemption from GET under G37 exemption if you're building a certain percentage of affordable housing. So those two things make it possible. The other aspect that makes it difficult is that there's no such thing as an affordable carpenter or an affordable plumber. So construction costs in Hawaii are through the roof, so to speak. And they're on parity with places like New York, where all else equal, the same product built in New York is roughly what it costs to build here. So you have all of these aspects sort of working together, and what you get is a very, very limited supply of affordable housing. And then over the course of some period of time, that affordable housing is no longer affordable because the restriction period has expired and then it just becomes market again. We could fix this by enhancing the regulatory experience so that there isn't a whole lot of over-regulation, while at the same time establishing public-private partnerships so that we get the political will to do what we need to do to get these building permits approved and actually make the project feasible so that it's not just a total wash and you just get nothing. Is that?
That makes sense. And
Yeah.
there was just a follow-up question to that. Is there even room for affordable rentals? That was one of the questions that was up here too.
Affordable rentals there's a huge market for affordable rentals, and we can do it. It takes a little bit more creativity, but what we've done on Oahu, we have one affordable rental that we've built, Halekuila Place, right in the urban core of Kaka'ako. Prices for Halekuila Place for a 3-bedroom rental is $412, $1,418 a month for a 3-bedroom in the heart of Kaka'ako. Really, this is amazing. And the entire building, mixture of studio to 3-bedroom units, 60% AMI, 60% of the area median income. I think for a family of 4, that's roughly $50,000 in that range. So this project, Halekuila Place, which had a complicated capital stack, but took advantage of exemptions from the regulatory process, that allowed us to fast-track the project through the building permit process. And by the way, on Oahu, we can get building permits in 6 to 8 months. I think we took that project from inception to finish it took 18 months of construction. I believe there was another 8 months of planning that went into it. But there are these low-income housing tax credits that exist that you can use to raise the equity financing for these projects. And at the same time, interest rates are at a record low, so we're able to leverage our long-term debt for 40 years at less than 3%. And the other aspect was that we got a ground lease on that project for $1 a year for 65 years, which was part of the public-private partnership, which all those things together made the project feasible. So yeah, and we can do this here. We can do similar, maybe slightly smaller. I mean, we designed 10,000 square foot on a 10,000 square foot lot. We designed 103 units. We're not going to take it to fruition, but we can use these micro units, similar product that you find in San Francisco. We can do it in areas in the urban core in Wailuku Town, Kahului. We could even put one on Front Street. You'd barely notice it. And we could do these same 60% AMI. It's a solvable problem. So, I mean, short answer is yes, there's a huge demand, and it's very much possible with the right expertise and the right private-public partnerships to bring affordable rentals to fruition in even the smallest lots.
Okay. Thank you. All right. Yes. Here.
What we really need is being able to count on your entitlements and not get sued, halfway down the line, and they vacate your SMA or you can't get your building permits because it's stuck in the county for over a year. You can't get comments. We also need to repeal Show Me the Water and start leveraging that long-term debt to build out the infrastructure while at the same time taking advantage of the higher purchasing power because rates are so low.
Well, we're losing our young people. That's why we're all a bunch of gray hairs.
We're losing our key talent. There's no rentals, right? Or they're at home in the garage. Yeah, we are losing key talent. We're losing teachers because the state can't afford to house them. UH can't afford to house it. I'm surprised we have any nurses' aides over at Kapiolani Hospital. It's, I mean, preaching to the choir. We need them.
All right.
We can build them.
Thank you.
Yeah.
All right, Maud, we have some big questions for you. Why are people homeless? And how many people are homeless here in Maui? We hear a lot of different numbers, but those are the two big questions for you to start off with tonight.
So I was looking at our state utilization report, which is a compilation of data that all of us who are homeless service providers have to enter our information. We enter every single client individually. And at the end of the year, the University of Hawaii puts together a report. So I was looking at Maui County, and it said in fiscal year 2014, the number of clients that were served were 2,332. But that includes unsheltered as well as sheltered. So sheltered would be people who are in emergency or transitional shelter. So in Maui, we have two shelters. Family Life Center has an emergency shelter that can accommodate up to 50 people. And Kahaleakeola has the central shelter. They have emergency and transitional shelter, so central and Lahaina. So this number includes that. So it includes people who are outside on the streets as well as at risk of homelessness. So people who are doubled up, people who are not, they may be in a situation where they're not in the streets, but they're living with friends, couch hopping, that kind of thing. Why are people homeless? There's a number of reasons. I know that the common stereotype is people that are either crazy, mentally ill, or substance abusers. And that is not true. I think primarily one of the biggest reasons, well, I always say they're homeless because there's no affordable housing. If there was enough housing that was at a low rate that people could afford, we might not see as many people homeless. But primarily I think that a lot of it is due to someone who faces a life-altering event like a death in the family, a disability, a divorce, job loss or underemployment, domestic violence. And, people who are living in poverty, when they face an everyday life issue, which people who have a higher income could handle, such as, your car breakdown. People who are living in poverty or close to poverty, that kind of event is overwhelming sometimes, and that is sometimes just the thing that pushes them over and they end up on the streets. There serious illness. We have people who these are events that are unplanned for, and they weren't expecting. I think the statistics on how many people are homeless that do have mental illness is probably around 20%. The chronically homeless people that the picture of homelessness, people say, there's some guy lying on the street, he's drunk, and that kind of thing. There's probably 10 to 15% of the population that is chronically homeless that use up 50% of the resources. So that's emergency room and a lot of other kinds of resources that the community has. So a lot of the focus sometimes is on housing chronically homeless, because if we can get those people housed when free up, if they're consuming 50% of the resources, it's a lot of resources that are going to 10, 15% of the population. So we focus a lot of our work on that group of people, although they do not make up the vast majority of people who are homeless.
And can you just quickly let us know, you have the chronic homeless, we have hidden homeless. What are the main categories when we are talking about the houseless or homeless population? What are the specific categories that many of the people fall under?
Well, what I wanted to say is that right now there's a huge effort to end veteran homelessness. Throughout the nation, there is a campaign to end veteran homelessness by December of 2015. I can tell you that we're not going to do it on Maui. We've been working at it, but you actually have to get a by-name list of each person and know where they are and know what part of the island they are at. And so we've been working diligently on that. I know on Oahu there was a mayor's challenge, and I don't know how close they are to ending that. But there are some cities across the state that have ended veteran homelessness. And that is getting it to a point of what they call functional zero, where of the people out there that still need the service, you have enough resources to accommodate that. So there's veteran homeless. The next, because the idea was that it would just take a small chunk of what is manageable, what we think we can attack and end. Let's do that first. Then the next group that is we're going to be focusing on is chronic homeless, or is it family homeless? Chronic homeless, I believe. And then, because that's another 15-20% of the population. And then the next goal is to end family homelessness. And so I think if we think in terms of that kind of service provision, it kind of helps us see it differently.
And when you say family homeless, is that what a lot of us call hidden homeless? Is that, or is family homeless the families who are homeless?
Yeah, it's
Okay.
just families
Okay.
who are homeless.
All right.
Hidden homeless would speak to people who are maybe currently sheltered, but they're couch hopping, they're not on the lease, they're doubled up, they're in situations where they're not a legal renter.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Thelma, you are with Catholic Charities, and the question here is, what specifically is Catholic Charities' role in the community as we're looking at this issue?
Catholic Charities Hawaii I've been working for Catholic Charities Hawaii for 8 years now. And for the 8 years, almost the 8 years I've been involved in the Homeless Alliance, we also have funding, emergency funding that help people to get rental assistance so they don't become homeless. But I also wanted to talk about why people are homeless on Maui. And I believe Maud had said that, things occur, that people, they have life emergencies, and so they utilize their funds for what needs to be taken care of. So we're talking about people who live day to day, paycheck to paycheck, and we have quite a few of those. And these people can't afford rent, even the affordable rental at 60%. So I applaud that they're looking for work, they're willing to take the lower wages, but these wages don't put them in rentals. So that's what we have to work with. We have to find a way to get them in rentals that they can afford. One of the things we didn't talk about is that Housing First project that we're trying to get going on Maui, and Oahu is already doing Housing First, and that's something that we're all trying to move towards and trying to get a common assessment and a common, common entry system. So we can get these chronically homeless, these chronic families into housing that they can afford, not the 60% because they really can't afford that. So anyway, Catholic Charities Hawaii, I'm really fortunate to be working there because one of the things that they allow me to do is they allow me to advocate for people in need. So people who are homeless, we do provide emergency services, but I'm also allowed to advocate for these folks. I'm allowed to advocate for social justice issues, which I'm pretty active in, mostly on the central side. Sometimes being in Lahaina just seems so far away. So while we provide services island-wide and Molokai and Lanai, most of the political stuff is in Wailuku. So I do advocate for things that come up in the community. And we offer a wide range of services besides just the homeless. But I think the homeless stuff is what we want to address here. So I do advocate for these people who need to be in homes.
Thank you. So before you turn that over to, so the direction that the Maui Homeless Alliance and the Continuum of Care is taking, because you are also co-chairing that,
Right.
Can you just give us a brief, kind of tell us what that's all about and what you're doing and what the...
Maud's question.
All right, I can take it
Okay.
back to Maud. But you know,
No,
just
that's
to
okay.
give people an idea, because we read about what you're doing in the newspaper, we hear the words out there. But just as a brief 101, what is it that you're
We
doing?
have what's called the Maui Homeless Alliance Continuum of Care, and this continuum is made up of a lot of different organizations, nonprofit organizations. We have the County of Maui. We are the only island, I can proudly say, that the police department, community police officers attend. We've had the director of Parks and Recreation. We have the Department of Health, the director of the Department of Health, Dr. Pang, Public Health, excuse me. So there's a bunch of people who are really engaged in finding solutions for homelessness. These people are on the ground level trying to come up with solutions and working together to see what can be done. But, you know, like I said, it's not, we can't do things by ourselves, even though some of us do have some funding. The funding that we have is not enough to end the homeless issue. And we do need community support. We need community education. We need community understanding to help us come up with these solutions. And it's funny because the last meeting we were at, I think Joe was there, it was kind of an active group, lots of questions, lots of comments. When I have people saying how they feel about the alliance and that they're disappointed because something's not going along with their liking, the question is, what are you going to do about it? You're disappointed in us, but what are you going to do? So is it our job, or is it my job? Is it just the other people who are involved, or are you involved as well? So the question was then turned around to say, well, we're going to have a meeting afterwards to address that certain need. You are welcome to join that committee. Unfortunately, that person had another obligation after the meeting, but he did state that he was going to be in touch with the committee chair and get together with him so he could assist. But this is what I mean, you know, you cannot point the finger and expect me, Maud, Jan to solve the problem, because it's not just us. So you come up with an issue, that's great, we want to work on it, but what are you going to do to help us solve that issue? So the Homeless Alliance, you know, we're there to work on the issues of homelessness, to work on the HUD priorities, because HUD also funds us. The HUD money is federal money that comes down to work on homeless issues. So we work on those priorities. And there's certain policies that we have to follow to satisfy HUD so we can continue to get these monies to provide services for the homeless.
Thank you. All right. Jan, you're going to be next. So I think that we kind of spoke about what the housing situation on Maui is right now. Another question here for you is, how many people are applying for housing assistance to your department?
Can I explain?
Sure,
expand
of
upon,
course. Please.
Continuum of care?
Yes.
Really fast, just
Yeah,
so.
no.
Continuum of Care 101. So Continuum of Care is an umbrella that is that has put Oahu. Oahu has their organization called PIC, or Partners in Care, and because little Maui and little Kauai and little Hawaii Island isn't able to get the funds, we formed Bridging the Gap. So we are called the Balance of State. Some people may know us as. So as Bridging the Gap, Maui, Hawaii, and Kauai come together, and we're so fortunate that we are supported by the State Homeless Program Office on Oahu. And so they're the ones who help us with the HUD monies. So what is Maui Homeless Alliance? Maui Homeless Alliance has been chartered and is one of the chapters of Bridging the Gap. And I just wanted to put a really big plug to Maud and to Thelma for taking on the co-chairship of Maui Homeless Alliance, because it is huge, and it is something that we meet every third Wednesday. Nobody's writing it down. Every third Wednesday at noon at MEO classroom number 1. Thank you for writing it down. Okay, so my question, sorry. My question was, how many people are applying for housing assistance? So currently in our Section 8 housing voucher program, we have approximately 1,300 active clients who have been housed, who have housing vouchers. Unfortunately, many of them we're finding that the landlords, when their lease is up, are finding that they can find other people who would pay even higher rents. So talk about being homeless, that's another way. So it's very unfortunate that a lot of the landlords are finding that because they can get that higher rent, are slowly not renewing some of the Section 8 leases. And that's very disheartening. But there's going to be some changes in some of the ordinances, so we're hoping, and I'll get to that later. Since January, 1,900 applicants on the wait list had been cleared, and currently we have about 600 families and single persons seeking rental units on Maui. Hooray, but where are the units? So we just were approved by HUD to extend the vouchers till January of 2016. The extension, a lot of the vouchers were going to expire within this year, and we did extend it till December of 2015. But then we were just approved by HUD that we can extend it till January 2016. So those of you who know people who need an extension, please let them know that they need to have it in writing and send it to our Section 8 division, housing division, that they would like that extension. It has to be in writing, and it needs to, so that their housing specialist is able to document it and approve their extension. Recently, we did open our application process, and literally thousands of people applied. But we were only going to take randomly the first, well, not the first 1,000, but it was going to be a random selection. So not everyone who applies will be placed on the wait list due to funding limitations, but then we will be implementing a computerized random selection process to place the participants on the wait list. So that's...
So you were going to talk a little bit too about some of the new ordinances that might be coming into play. Is that something you'd like to talk about now?
Okay, so what's being done?
Yes.
I knew you're going to ask me that. Okay. So what's being done for increasing affordable housing units in Maui County? So we understand that there is a serious shortage, as it's been told to us, in the rental area, and we're trying to make some changes to increase the number and entice landowners, landlords to participate. So some of the initiatives that are happening is that we are making some changes in the administrative rules, which just was approved, and the mayor just signed our administrative rules, which was not seen in, I think, or not changed in 20 years.
Wow.
So the Section 8 housing managers and some of the specialists took almost a week to go through that huge document. And so there has been some changes done. And some of the rules are things like single room occupancy. So would be able to allow single room occupancy, as well as we are now being trained into project-based vouchers. So what that means is that there might be a developer who does a building, and they would apply for Section 8 housing voucher. And if they're a project-based voucher, all of their units will be able to accept Section 8 voucher holding participants. So if somebody were to move out and get a permanent or get a rent, buy a home or move out of that project, they would be another person coming in with a voucher would be easily be able to get into that particular rental. Another one is that council has also proposed allowing accessory dwellings on smaller lots. So that's been in the discussion. Council has proposed a real property tax exemption per contract for landlords who participate in Section 8. I'm not going to give you the figure because it's still in talking terms. We will be implementing a direct deposit system to ensure that landlords receive their rental income in a timely manner.
What has it been up until now? The county will send a check, and
Yes.
then it takes a long time, and
Yeah, because we have to lick all 1,900 envelopes. No, I'm just
I
kidding.
used to work at the state. I know.
I know,
The
so-
typewriters.
And yeah. So direct deposit, I think soon, if not already.
So that would take it down. I mean, what is the average that landowners or landlords are waiting now for those checks to come in? Is it
And
like
actually,
a month behind,
it's-
or?
No, I
No?
think we're pretty current on that, but it's just a way to attract, because that's one of the
Right.
so-called barriers in landlords not wanting a Section 8,
Huh.
renter,
Right.
because I'm not sure if I'm going to get paid.
Right.
So that. And then in addition, thanks to council for our workforce housing ordinance. So the 2.96 has been changed in some of the, making it a little easier for developers so we are having, Director Carol Ryman apologizes for not being here, but she is swamped with more and more developers coming in to talk about 201Hs and a lot of the other development.
All right. Thank you. Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right.
Thank you, Jan.
Yeah, thank you, Jan. So, Dr. Aquino, one of the things, is that? Okay. Do you want to?
This is good. Go ahead,
Okay,
Deidre.
good. All right. So one of the things you were talking about was the free market economics, and you gave some examples. But can you expound upon that a little bit to the crowd and let us know what else can be done with a free market economy as it relates to housing?
Thank you. Yes, I'd like to do that. But to do that, I think we have to contrast that with what's going on. I have to tell you how privileged I feel to be at this table with all of my colleagues here. Jan and Thelma and Maud especially, because you're rolling your sleeves up and you're out there in the trenches. And I thank you so much. And I really felt for you, Thelma. Do you know there's something you said 4 times tonight? The phrase, there's not enough money. There's not enough money. And I think that's true in a non-free market approach. We just don't have enough money in Hawaii, and we have to be realistic. Right now, our governor has a plan to end homelessness and has given an emergency decree with $1.5 million. $1.5 million, and no disrespect, I respect Scott tremendously, but if you were in there negotiating yourself for the money, you should be asking for $1.5 billion if we're going to make a dent on this, at least a portion of the fixed rail system that's being bought on the island of Oahu. I'd say that it's not only true for the social service agencies, but if we're going to be really honest, it's true for the government as well. We can't continue to expect the government to be the solution to homelessness and social service agencies to pick up the difference. It will never happen because the money's not there. In terms of the government, right now we're facing $20 billion of unfunded liabilities in terms of pensions that our grandchildren are going to have to pay for public workers. The same is true in the health insurance fund. The same is true in our counties. One bank president has said that in addition to that, there are $50 billion of unfunded liabilities elsewhere in the state. That 1.5 million emergency money isn't going to grow, Scott. You've got a tough job, and people are going to be looking at you, and sad to say, they may end up blaming you if we don't solve this problem. Because the reality is, we don't have enough money if our frame of reference is going to be that the government is supposed to pay for it or that charities are supposed to pay for it. On the other hand, Mr. Koloa Robinson down there, who knows Stanford Carr. I had a chance to talk to Stanford about that remarkable project that has released some affordable housing. And it happened because the government got out of the way and allowed tax credits to come in and allowed some zoning changes. And it wasn't because of what the government did. It was because of what the government stopped doing in order to let Stanford Carr development to move forward. And so take a hint from there with regard to what the free market is. The free market is where we let supply and demand work in a very natural way without the government interfering. And Deidre, you asked me to mention some examples. And
Yes.
Here's one. One example of what the free market could do to help solve our problem is very simple, and that is to increase the supply of land. And you might be thinking, what are you talking about? We live in Hawaii. We don't have any more land. Well, I had a nice talk with Stanford Carr and also with Christina Camp at Avalon Development and with several other developers. And they came to the conclusion that we are not building homes or urbanization on any more than 3 to 3.5% of the entire land mass in the islands. The rest is all agriculture or preserve. And if you fly over the islands, you realize, oh yeah, look at all that open space. I'm not advocating that we use all that open space, but I've talked to the experts and they say that if we just increased the use of 0.5% more, we could increase the supply of land available for affordable housing or affordable homes on the market and so forth. It's a very simple economic principle. Increase the supply, you drive down the price. But keep in mind, government zoning regulations prevent that from happening. So one solution would be, let's let up a little bit, and we can do that easily to increase the supply of land. Number two, let's eliminate the zoning barriers to private developers who want to solve the problem. Dwayne Kurisu, a businessman on the island of Oahu, is trying to solve the problem that the only thing that's happening with the homeless people in the tent city in Kaka'aku is that they're being moved elsewhere, not necessarily into shelters. He wants to build a shelter between Ke'ehi Lagoon and the airport, a temporary housing facility in which you'd have full services and so forth. Here on this island, Peter Martin and his company and Ho'omoana Foundation are doing the same thing. All over the island and all over the state, there are businesses that are saying, we want to solve the problem from a business point of view because it's good for our neighborhoods, good for our developers, and so forth. And you've got a state government that doesn't have the money. We have to learn to get out of the way. And so the second thing would be to eliminate zoning barriers to private developers. Here's a third. Let's redirect the way we think about the federal government and their spending. Maud mentioned that the federal government is behind a veterans campaign to end homelessness amongst veterans. That sounds very good, but you were quite honest about the fact that it's not likely to be achieved by the end of 2015. The federal government is also behind bringing under the COFA agreement Micronesian immigrants here to Hawaii, because we have told them we will pay for their welfare benefits here in Hawaii. But here's the problem. All the money we try to pay for housing and clothing and food and shelter for Micronesians who are here will not solve the problem unless we go to the source, and that is that there are federal policies that have destroyed the economy of Micronesia, and that if we reverse some of those policies for free market policies, we can revitalize the tuna industry. I've talked to Micronesians. If they had businesses in the tuna industry or related industries because they had an economic capacity back home, they would stay home and raise their children in Micronesia. So the whole theme throughout this, and I won't go through all the solutions, is that if we have a bigger picture in our mind and say it's not for government to solve and it's not for charities to pick up the difference, but instead, let's have free market principles that can build our economy, we can actually transform this completely. One important free market principle is this: work is better than welfare. Work is better than welfare. There are people flocking to Hawaii who are able-bodied, capable of working, but immediately when they arrive, they take advantage of our welfare system and the fact that they can qualify quickly, the fact that they can live here, and so forth. I don't resent them for their free choice, but the truth is, when we help people to get jobs and work, and we help people to be productive, we keep them away from idleness. We keep them away from despair. We help them to have self-esteem. So one of the first things that I mentioned in my opening speech was a very simple thing. Let's get some exemptions to or eliminate the minimum wage law so that people can employ others at an affordable rate. So Deidre, these are just some of the solutions. I don't have time tonight, but if anybody would like to know our 10 free market solutions to end homelessness, just go to our booth over here. Joe will be over here. Leave your email, and we'll send that to you and send you a video. I hope that was helpful.
Okay. Thank you very much, Doctor.
Thank you.
You mentioned something, and that is another one of the questions that came in. I'm not sure who directly to address this to. Maybe it's Maud. Is it true that other states are sending their homeless to Hawaii? I mean, we hear about this, but do you have evidence of that? And
This is a rumor that I've heard for the last 20 years.
yes.
And I have not found it to be true. And we ask every person that comes into our shelter or on outreach, how did you get here? Whose money did you use? You say you don't have any income, but how did you get here? What we do find is that families will often send family members here. We had a guy, his nickname was Chicago because he was from Chicago and his family knew that he was going to die on the streets of cold. And so they figured they'd send him to Hawaii where he wouldn't he'd be in the streets, but he wouldn't die of the cold. And we know that to be true because we've talked to him. We helped him call his family, which he did regularly every week. There may be some other, I talked to one person, one of the strategies we use is sometimes we'll let people use our cell phone and then look up the number and call it and see who it was. So I talked to one person like that, and they came from they were discharged from a mental institution in Utah. And so I asked the social worker, did you know that she was coming here? He's like, yeah, I did. And I said, did you help them come here? No, but what they do is help them arrange her discharge from the hospital about the same time as her Social Security check was coming in, and then, maybe help them get on a cab, but using the person's money, and then she went to the airport and just said, give me the next flight out to any place in Hawaii, which happened to be Maui. So they may have some assistance with maybe some, to navigate the process. But no, we have not found anybody that's actually been sent by a government agency or anything like that.
Okay. Thank you. Yes.
Sometimes. What I wanted to say was one of the other things that happens is that people who have never been here before get a job. So, in their mind, they're thinking, well, I have a job. I'm going to move to Maui. And then they call for assistance. And I tell them, you have to be on the island in order to get any kind of assistance. You cannot be calling and apply on the phone from the mainland. The other thing is, lots of them come over planning to work, planning for some place to live. And when they come here, they find out that they don't have a job. So they're stranded. That happens very frequently. And I also hear the same stories about people coming over. We had a gentleman who was homeless who was sitting in our office, and he was collecting SSDI disability. And he said, well, before I decided to come here, my worker told me that I could come to Maui and I could get all these benefits and I could find some place, I could live here. And in truth, even with his benefits, he couldn't afford to live here. So he was looking for some way to get home. So this is the sad reality of some of the people that come here.
Okay. Thank you. One of the questions that came in from the audience is just a very, very simple question. I think maybe everyone can answer this, is how can I help? So in a perfect world with each of your organizations, how can people help? How can people help you with what you are doing? Is it coming to your meetings? What is it? Let's start from who has the microphone. Why don't we just start from Scott and go down?
Well, I think, I get asked this question a lot, and I think one of the ways that people can help is participating in meetings like this, coming to events like this one, participating in meetings of the Continuum of Care or similar groups that have the purpose of wanting to try and assist to, address this issue. I think the other way that people can help is really through education. I think there's a lot of misinformation, about the homeless. I think a good example is, Ahmad and Thelma were just speaking to, and I think there's many more myths and really misconceptions. And I think one of the biggest ways that people can help is as you learn more information, as you learn more about the individuals in our community who are homeless, if you can share that information with others, your neighbors, your friends, your family members, because I think it's only through increased education awareness that we're really going to be able to build the political will to be able to address this issue in the long term. I think it really takes our entire community having investment in this issue and really better understanding the issues that are impacting our fellow community members for us to really make any long-term significant difference.
We'll all go.
Yeah, everyone go on this one
and
because I think you all.
So
have,
for us, it's a little bit more political. There's been a couple of things. I think last time Stanford was here, he wanted to get the project off in 60 days. That didn't happen. One of the things we've been hearing is that people are calling this project controversial, alleging things against us. If you want to see 102 affordable units for your sons, daughters, grandchildren in Lahaina, give your council member a call or give DSA a call and let them know that it's not that controversial. We did all of our approvals and that this is actually a good thing, not a bad thing.
I think there are some simple ways. One of them is if you see a person holding a cardboard sign, do not give them money. We always stop by when we see someone asking for money. We stop and we offer assistance. We welcome them into our shelter. Most of the time it's not taken up, but that is a simple way. But the other way is if you have a unit that you want to rent, or if you know of somebody. One of the things I was talking to the mayor and to Scott about is could we have some kind of a fund where if landlords want to rent out a space, but they know it won't pass the inspection, maybe we can do something about helping that to come about. A lot of people it's a bother. And maybe we can help do that. So we're talking about putting together a program to actually do some practical things to help increase the rental market.
And would that be something directed toward the Alliance? Would that be directed toward the mayor's office? Or is that discussion still in the process of being worked out?
The Alliance is actually talking about putting together something for the landlords in the community. So one of the things that we had talked about was some kind of recognition for landlords. The other thing is education. That was one of the things that had come up at the Homeless Alliance meeting, is that the landlords don't have enough education to know about Section 8. And one of the people there was saying that it doesn't take a lot to educate them, and a lot of them say that they really didn't know that information, and if they did, it might make a difference. I also was talking to somebody from the Realtor Association, and he had mentioned too that they want to do something for their landlords. So the first thing I told him is, you should partner with us because we really want to do something with the landlords, recognize them, give them some education so we can get more of our people into their units.
Great.
One more thing.
Yes.
I also wanted to say that it's really important when issues come out and when you see the nonprofits going up and supporting certain things that are meant to deal with the homeless issue, is please, we need your support. So anytime you hear of, advocacy, going out to testify, sending letters of support for certain issues that the nonprofits are getting involved in, whether it's affordable housing, homelessness, we need your support for those things. So either coming out, showing, enforce people who are in support of that, testifying or sending letters, that would be great.
Do you have a way that people can sign up with you? Do you send out email blasts or a newsletter or something on Facebook for those who are?
We do have a website, so you can check on the website to see what's going on, and we should be putting some of the hot issues on that website, so we'll talk to the person who's helping us with that. Every year, we're trying to address legislation for certain items, so that would be a good place to put it.
Jan? Okay. Oh, okay. So actually, Scott and Maud both have to leave at 7:30. So why don't we allow them some final comments before they go? And one question was to the state was the state planning and everything else that you're doing on doing some sort of advertising campaign or some PR campaign out to the public to get them more involved with some of the things that we're talking about tonight? That was one of the questions.
Well, I know one of the things that the state is doing is the governor is planning a series of community meetings where he'll be visiting, every community throughout the state, including the island of Maui. So I think that's one way that we want to increase, community awareness and involvement. I think we're also exploring, whether there are additional things that we'll be able to do within this current fiscal year, hopefully before the end of this year, before the end of December. We're trying to identify, additional funding within the current fiscal year's budget. I did want to share, some of the things that maybe which I didn't touch on, which our administration is doing to address this issue. One of the things getting to the issue of education for landlords is we formed a partnership with the Hawaii Association of Realtors, which is not limited just to Oahu. It's actually a statewide partnership. We're having an event tomorrow in Honolulu, a landlord summit, where we're trying to better educate landlords, realtors, property managers about some of the misconceptions regarding renting to homeless individuals, trying to educate them better about the Section 8 process, how that works. And one of the things that we've spoken to the realtors about is that we don't want that landlord summit in Honolulu to be the end goal. We're looking at seeing if we can do a series of summits and really trying to look at ways that we can partner with the different counties, with other communities, to have that same type of dialogue, that same type of session in every community across our state. The other thing I wanted to mention is affordable housing is one of Governor Ige's top priorities. And last legislative session, we made a very bold ask to the legislature. We asked for $100 million for the Rental Housing Trust Fund to increase our affordable rental housing stock in the state. Unfortunately, we were not, the legislature did not appropriate that full $100 million. They appropriated $40 million. But because of that, and because of the amount of funding that comes into the Rental Housing Trust Fund through the conveyance tax, we had $80 million available this year to develop affordable rental housing, and that's more than we've ever had before in the Rental Housing Trust Fund. And I think it's because of the priority that Governor Ige has given this issue of affordable housing. We're continuing to have dialogue with some of our developers, such as Stanford Carr and others, to get feedback from them about how we can refine some of our state processes, ease some of the barriers that we're seeing, so we can get more affordable rental stock on the market. Again, those are just some of the things that we're doing, and thank you for allowing me the opportunity to share with you, really give you some perspective about the framework you're using to address this issue statewide. Thank you.
Thank you, Scott. Okay.
That's why. They're not leaving because they don't like your speech.
No.
The bus is here to take them. Sorry.
Thank you for coming.
Yeah, thank you everybody for coming. Thank you so much. Maud, do you want to give some closing remarks because you're leaving as well?
Yes, at Family Life Center, we're always examining.
Let's give a round of applause to our MEO Lahaina seniors.
Thank you.
For coming out, and to everybody. Yes.
So we're also always examining what we do and how we do it, and to make sure that what we do is not just what we think should be done, but we're always listening to our clients and listening to people who are actually homeless, and asking them to tell us what the solutions might be. And so one of the areas as well is I was listening to someone from Utah who ended veteran homelessness this year, and they recognized early on that they weren't going to be able to build their way out of the situation, and so they went on a program of acquiring. So we have been looking at properties that are underutilized, commercial buildings that are zone B1, B2, or M1 that allow apartment use, and seeing if we can't acquire some of those properties and convert them to use for rental. And because if we expect developers to do it, it's a long process. But there are units out there that, maybe we only get 5 units out of it, but 5 is 5. And so we've been able to purchase an apartment building, 2 apartment buildings, but we're looking at really properties that are underutilized, that are out there, that have been vacant for 2 or 3 years, and seeing if we can't do something to convert that.
Thank you. Thank you very much. So as these 2 panelists leave, and I know that we are coming to the end of our time, wanted to let everybody know that you can stay after to talk story and ask questions, exchange information. Does anybody here at the table want to share any final thoughts? All right, Jan and then Dr. Aquina. Oh, and I also wanted to acknowledge that we did receive many questions regarding the Ho'omoana project, and we are going to turn these over to the West Maui Taxpayers Association to get to the right people, but we did want to acknowledge that we did receive those. We don't have a panelist up here tonight to speak specifically to that. Jan.
What was the question? No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah.
Okay, so
Final remarks.
how can you help?
And
in
how can
final
you help?
remarks? Right. So it's really interesting that this very morning, I was in a meeting with the mayor, with Child and Family Services. Executive Director is Nicole Hokuana, and she brought to the table, and if you have a chance to sit with her, she is trying to get this collaboration going, and their agency has is fortunate enough to be able to spread in Maui TTS, and TTS stands for Transition to Success. And so listen for the TTS mantra, because transition to success, I think, can work because it's everybody working together. That's one thing. The other thing, we talked about the homeless count. You hear about the homeless count. The homeless count doesn't just appear. It takes many, many volunteers. And this is where every January we have a training, and you have to have the training with the state office. It comes to Maui, and you're trained to do the PIT count, and it's the point in time count, where we go out in 1 week and ask a homeless, where were you sleeping this particular night? And that's how we get the count for the state. It's usually done every other year, but Hawaii has been doing it every year. And we really need volunteers to go out into the bushes, and I have my shoes to prove it.
So how can people get involved with that, especially the people who are watching via Akaku and might not be able to get your card?
Okay, so when the PIT count training comes out, we'll be sure to put a press release out. We'll be able to have you get in touch with the Homeless Alliance, but we'll make sure that we do get that word out that the point in time count is coming out, and it's usually trainings in early January, and the count is usually done the last week of January. We need volunteers, we really do.
Sorry. And one thing about the volunteers, is that we don't send brand new volunteers who have been oriented out by themselves. You need to go with somebody who's done the point-in-time count before. And the other thing is that we never want to put anybody at risk. We want everybody to be safe. So, a lot of times, Family Life Center, they have their outreach workers who are used to going out and used to meeting with people. And they know a lot of the homeless people in the community. So they'll tag team with one of their outreach workers or one of the outreach workers from the other agencies, just so you're not out there by yourself. And it's never a person alone. It's always two people or more.
That's good to know. Okay, thank you. And Dr.
One last
Akina,
thing.
yes?
I really wanted to say that because of the governor's emergency proclamation, Mayor Arakawa has put together a task force, a homeless task force. And this is, you're probably hearing it the first, because I just got it on my email, but Mayor is going to be meeting with council members on Tuesday, November 24th, 9 o'clock in Chambers, to roll out his plan on how he would like the county to support, the council to support his plan in ending homelessness on Maui.
Thank you for that. Very good news. All right,
Next week, Tuesday,
next week, Tuesday. What time?
9 o'clock
9 o'clock
in the Chambers.
in the Chambers. Perfect. We hope everyone's there. Dr. Akina.
Well, thank you very much. First, mahalo to all the members of the West Maui Taxpayer Association and to my fellow panelists. It's been a wonderful opportunity. I think that the number one thing we can do is to tell our policymakers and the people who want to get into office as well to solve the right problem. I truly respect the fact that we are at a ground level trying to solve the problem of homelessness by putting boots on the ground to provide food, clothing, shelter, and so forth. And that needs to go on. And so I commend all of my fellow panelists because you are heroes. Thank you very much. But I think we have to tell our government that the biggest problem that needs to be solved is pointed out by recent surveys and rankings that put Hawaii dead last, according to CNBC, as a climate in which businesses can thrive. And unless businesses can thrive, we cannot help the people at the lowest end of the economic ladder. The free market provides the best solutions. And so what we need to do is get out of the way of businesses and do the things necessary to make Hawaii an investment climate that attracts capital that will produce jobs and industries here in the state. Now, when we solve that problem, we will deal automatically with most of the affordable housing problem and the homelessness, and the remainder can be dealt with quite reasonably. So that is what I would say. And if anybody would like to have our 10 free market solutions to homelessness, just do leave your email at our booth here and I'll send you the video on that. Thank you very much. Thanks for being here tonight.
Thank you. So I'd like to give a big thank you to all of our panelists who were here this evening, both those from Maui and who flew over from Oahu. And I think, Joe, I'd like to call you back up to close us out this evening.
This way here. Well, small group that's left here, but thank you all very much. This is such an awesome thing. Thank you very much, panel members. It's the first time this has been done, right? You haven't got this together, but hopefully it's not the last. One of the things that is the discussion's got to start, collaboration's got to start, and everybody's got to see this is all of us. I love that question. Is like, what are you doing? Not how much, what they can get from you, but what are they doing to help into this process? That is so important. And I hope those people that are watching us on Akaku understand and appreciate that. This is going to not be solved overnight, but it's got to start someplace. Let it begin with you. I always tell people I know, be that change that you want to see in the world. This is a chance to do that. Become that change you want to see in the world. Get involved yourself. Support us, the West Maui taxpayers, trying to help that. That's a commercial for us and all these agencies. Thank you all very much, panel members. Thank you, Akaku. Thank you, all of you. Have a blessed night. Thank you.